Hello, and welcome to our live stream here today. Just to kind of facilitate everyone chiming in, anybody who happens to attend chiming in, I put a link in the description.
And welcome to our live stream here today.
Whoops, I'm sorry, I was feeding back. What I'm looking to accomplish here is to essentially get the word out about the intention of the project, to acknowledge some of the mission, and really build some community around it, to gauge your interest level, where you're coming from, and then move from there. Be very responsive. Okay, I do not like living in a vacuum whatsoever. So to just start off here, a little bit about the impetus behind the creation of the CS1 Game Engine and CS1 IDE. It was created initially in a response to two sixth-grade students. I was teaching a summer camp in IoT technology, Internet of Things technologies, and we were pretty much building custom firmware for some little circuits, and the students engaged in that particular course, or summer camp, if you will, started to venture off into the game integration aspect of it. There was a possibility partway through the course to maybe integrate in with a 3D environment. That was one of the options in that course, and some of those students really wanted to push that aspect of it further, and they prompted me to make things easier for them, to kind of build out some abstractions and some templates for them to get rolling. And that's really where the project started. And the project, at this point in time, you can actually get a link to it right down in the description. You can see the project hosted at Glitch. It's also, of course, at GitHub. And if you go to that project, you can see some instructions there on how to get started by remixing and adding basically an admin key. But we'll go through that here. I'll do some screen sharing in just a moment. But I think that understanding of the background of where this came from is really essential to fully appreciate that I engage in this type of creativity in projects for the purpose of being responsive to what other people had asked for, and to carry it forward, and to make it play out in like anything in a broader perspective. I would like to see us, what's desired out there. For example, if you look down in the description as well, I put a link for a presentation as well as a little survey. So if you could, I'd much appreciate it if you fill out the survey there. The survey is basically just asking for some, what's it asking for? The survey is asking for you to identify pretty much how you see yourself using the CS1 Game Engine, where you're at in experience in computer programming, if any at all, and then any feature suggestions and things that you would like to see offered as lessons and so forth. So it's a very short survey, but it will help me, again, be responsive and then build things out from there. Now, if you look at the presentation link, you'll see that in the presentation link, there is also there's links within there, of course, in the presentation. So once you go to that presentation, you will see that there are links to, for example, a Discord channel. If you're not familiar with Discord, it's just basically it's a chat mechanism, thread organization tool, very popular in in different gaming communities. So I put that together in response, again, to some students wanting me to put out a Discord channel. So I just started that. So if you go, there's a server, you can get an automatic server invite just by clicking the link. Beyond that, I guess I could say at this point, that I'm also looking in the survey for kind of if there's a particular emphasis in terms of platform, like the CS1 Game Engine can develop for, like you see right here, like an Oculus Quest device, which is a VR headset device. And it right out of the bat, right off the bat, can also develop for a phone. So you don't have to do any, or the students don't have to do anything special to make it work on those devices, as well as laptops, and it can run on, of course, iPads and so forth as well. That being said, I would like to see if there's an emphasis towards one platform or the other. Then I can start looking at some of the fine-tuning of the optimization for those particular platforms. All right, so let me jump into a presentation mode. I'm going to go into screen share, and I'm just going to go into the entire window. I'll go share, and I'm going to go over here to this presentation and walk you through right here. Okay, so what I'm saying right here is that this is really about driving creativity, driving learning through creativity and VR experiences. To make the VR experiences compelling, there is effort on my part to kind of expose some of the aspects of the underlying A-frame framework being used to make it easier, to facilitate easier development for the students. Going over here, just to introduce myself if you don't already know this. My name is Eric Eisman, and I am from Auburn, Maine, and I consider myself an enthusiastic educator. And this has just been a research project for me over the last year, as I said, in response to a few students who brought up a particular desire that they had. So some information that I collected last year. So we had a pre-test right over here in terms of students identifying as computer programmers, and pre and post-test, and as well as considering a career that requires computer programming. So we saw gains in both of those areas, just some survey data. So what do I mean by experience-based learning and project-based learning? So where I'm coming from with that in project-based and experience-based learning, project-based meaning that we have a particular problem that we're solving, a certain target, a service or a product or a problem that we're solving, and it could be in the context of a science class where it's kind of stated kind of as an engineering problem. It could be within the context of even of an art class or another class where it has some other type of intended work product. Now, the experience-based learning is something that, like, maybe the teacher themselves would just put something together that would be maybe a VR experience, a 3D experience for their students to maybe learn something, a little demonstration lab for physics or something that wouldn't be intended to be this drawn-out project over several days or weeks, but instead just to immerse the students in a common experience. And then work from there. So that's kind of like where I'm coming from with that. Now, the components that are in the framework are as follows. There's the CS1 Game Engine, and we'll take a look at all these projects, the CS1 IDE project. And then there's these curricular templates, which I'm just pretty much at this point just putting together in terms of actual Google Slides presentations and Google Forms quizzes. So you'll see those templates pop up in the IDE. And then over here we can see CS1 VR experience, engaging them in a VR experience if you do have access to a VR system. And I'm not going to play that. It also, right off the bat, they can install their applications on a phone. And you can see like right over here, here's an icon where the application was installed as a progressive web application on the phone, and it caches assets and so forth, and you can set different caching strategies down the road if it gets down to that point where you want to customize the caching strategies. But it can be installed on a phone. It could actually be set up to run offline. Obviously, it wouldn't be multiplayer at that point, but you could have experiences set up so they're installable on devices and then can run offline. So what are some use cases for the system? Well, if you were thinking of yourself as maybe reaching out to language arts teachers, or if you yourself teach language arts, maybe you would write a story which is narrated by a voice within a custom designed 3D application environment. It can guide you around through an experience. There's a popular free VR experience with the Oculus Quest, or you can get it at the Quest store, the Oculus store. That's about the story, the Diary of Anne Frank, and kind of it's a nice VR experience, and it guides you through in the story kind of manner, and you can create things like that with the engine. Foreign language. Now, not in the VR at this point, because we do not have voice recognition availability within the Oculus Quest, but on the phones we do, on certain devices, and definitely on laptop browsers. We can use Chrome and so forth, and we can have voice recognition. So for a foreign language, if you wanted to have people or students kind of practice their speaking in the maybe French, they can actually speak and have it interpreted by the program as well. So these are some things some people might not be aware are available through these underlying web APIs. Math, of course, obviously, there's so many math models and that you can build. Engineering, you can actually design IoT circuits that integrate with the platform. And computer science, obviously, is perfect fit. Some people might not realize physical education. You can design all kind of exercises and ways of kind of gauging people's activity while they're using devices, like with the Oculus Quest, since it's completely untethered, not connected to anything, so they can be very active with it. And you can make actual workouts if you wanted to, a workout application for physical education. All right, so here's some just research if you wanted to kind of like look those things up. Those are some of the kind of pedagogical rationale behind certain choices I've made in the development of the system so far. I have a little video here on fundamentals. Here's a link to the Discord channel. And if you just joined in here, if you look down in the description, you'll see that there is a link to the presentation. And the presentation is what you're looking at right now. It's what I'm screen sharing. I also have links with these images. If you click right here, it'll take you to the official GitHub repository. And then if you click right over here, it will take you to the CS1 IDE repository. So I'm just going to jump out of that for right now. And let me go over here and taking a peek down into Oblivion right now. I'm not seeing any comments there. Okay, so what I'm going to do here at this point is then go through the basic process involved. So this is kind of where I organize myself with Google Drive. Now, you can literally get started with this, and I'll go through the whole process by doing bit.ly/CS1-remix. So bit.ly CS1-remix. And as long as you have an account at Glitch, then it will create a copy of the base CS1 project for you. And that's what it's doing right now. Okay, so that's all it took right there. It actually made a copy of the base project, and it gives it a custom name, Maple Theater. Maybe you want to Now it just gives it a random name, I should say. You can customize the name. Maybe I'm going to call this live stream demo. All right. So upon doing that, upon doing the remix, literally takes a couple seconds. The only other required thing before you can actually jump in and experience the demo is to go into this .env file and put in an admin key. I'm just going to put in this temporary insecure admin key. But you just put in an admin key right there inside of double quotes. And that admin key then is what you're going to be using is just kind of like this de facto initial login for the game. All right, so let's go ahead and go to show in a new window. And then it boots up right there in the new window. I'm going to turn the sound down so it's not too loud. And you can see, hey, there's a 3D environment right there. There's a little login. So in this login, I'm going to log in with admin and then the admin key that we just put in there. Okay. And let me just show you before I log in. Whenever the server boots up for this project, you go to Tools down here, Tools and Logs. It will actually show you what the name of the admin key or in any of the actually print out. Only you could see this, but you can see right there it says admin 999. All the accounts and all of the passwords will print out at the beginning of the boot. Whenever the server boots up, it'll print out all the user names and passwords. Now, I'm not going to go into, this is not getting into like salting and hashing and getting really crypto secure with all these passwords in the system here. This is designed for education. I don't need to overly complicate things. At this point, just being aware that these logs are available by going Tools, Logs, and then you can check what the password is. Because sometimes when you type it in, if you changed it, the password will be different than you thought it would have been. Maybe it would only recorded the first 9 and it said like admin key would be 9 or something. So you want to go back and check that if it doesn't accept your login. So I'm going to go log in. I verified that it does have login admin 999. So I'm going to log in. There we are.
Welcome to CS1 Community Park. Please join us at 9 p.m. for some tasty roasted marshmallow s'mores.
All right, so we see this 3D world that's in here. Now this 3D world is just something I put together just as a starter place. Now, if it's the focus of a course to do artistic stuff as well or extend that, I will put, and I already have other videos out there for getting art assets in and kind of building out a level, if you will. But for right now, I'm just going to focus here on this little screen. I'm grabbing it, and it's saying that admin is grabbing it. And I just released it, and it says admin release it. And this is basically a log screen. It's good for debugging. It's good for all kind of things. It's just a really quick way to throw some information into the 3D world. Now you can set it up so it's just going to log stuff for that particular player or client, or you can set it up so it will log things for everybody connected. So yes, this is a VR game out of the right out of the get-go. So how would I make another character? So if I go into, if I press, like if I'm in Chrome, for example, if I open up the dev tools or the JavaScript console, if I go Option Command J on Chrome, for example, and I go into the JavaScript console, I could type in CS1 and it gets me access to the global object for the engine. And I go socket, add user, and there's kind of like the API right there. It's going to authenticate with the admin key, and it's going to add a new user with this password. And it will give me a little feedback right there. User successfully added to the database. Okay, I'll add a couple more right here. If you're watching right now, you're welcome to go ahead and jump in with that if you wanted to. If you wanted to jump in with that character, you're more than welcome. And let me add another. So I'm adding 2 users right there, one with CS1 and one with main as the usernames, and passwords are 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll do the same thing, and I'll add one more, and I will say YouTube. And YouTube with capitalizing the Y and the T, YouTube 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you would like to go ahead and log in and try that out, you're more than welcome to. But that's how you can just add those in via the console, the JavaScript console. Now, if I go to another tab, if I go over here and go to, what was it called again? It was called, I can just copy it again. Just copy the URL, paste it. So here I am, and I'll log in with one of the other logins. So I'll just, and I use CS1 all the time, so I'll just log in with that. And there it is. And so I can see the other character over there. All right, so now we have admin in there as one character. If I go back to the other tab, and you can see, hello, I am CS1. So those are the two characters. Then you can change the characters and all kind of things, you know, of course, related to the actual kind of animation of characters. And at this point, no, I'm ready to ditch these types of characters and just have the heads of the characters kind of turn whenever I move them, rather than the whole body leaning forward and backwards. So I know some people mentioned that. But okay, so it's multiplayer right off the bat. You can also send a message. For example, if I press the equal sign, I could, for example, I can just type in. I could say, I can just type it in with the keyboard too. How are you? And hit enter and send that. And I can go to the other character. Now this works on the phone as well, so you can see right there. It also works right out of the get-go. The chat application works as well. All right, and you could do the same thing in a VR headset with a different interface, and you have a slightly different interface on a mobile device like a phone, but right off the bat that would work. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just close this up. So it's called Live Stream Demo. That's the name of the this particular project application. So I'm going to go ahead and close that up right now. Now we're going to go over and look at the IDE. So the IDE, stands for Integrated Development Environment, and it basically makes it easy for students to stay focused, for students to be guided through a very clear set of expectations. So let me just paste in the name and hit enter, and I'll say that. So over here we can see this is what the IDE looks like. It's another project, and it remotely connects into the game that we just remixed. So let's take a look at this, for example, interface in the IDE. There's, right off the get-go, there's 10 lessons. Now you don't have to use any of these lessons. These are just ideas, and I'll show you in a moment where these lessons are housed and how to kind of integrate them with the IDE yourself. But the lessons here, you can just switch them just by going just like that. Use this select menu. And if the lesson deals with another bit of source code, it actually brings up the source code that's related to that lesson. So if you were back here in the actual game project, and you would go and open these folders, just the source folder, you'll see there's a lot of subfolders. Even in the core folder, there's all these subfolders. There's a decent amount of code that's in this project. It's organized. But for students just getting started, to get their self built up with their basic skill capacity, this is very focusing. So you can go through, and we go back here maybe to lesson 1. So each lesson will bring up the associated code that's going to be related with it. And then each lesson is it's a Google Slides presentation. Now any teacher can make their own lesson by making a Google Slides presentation and hooking it into their own CS1 IDE remix. So at the end of the lessons, it instructs them to kind of interact with the code. Like right here, it says to go ahead and edit the on line 5, modify the number. I don't even think I have that in there anymore. I might have to change that. It says modify the number value assigned to my number variable. So let me see if I still have that. So yeah, I didn't even I took that out, so I have to modify that lesson. But if I go over here, here's what it was. So I basically was saying something like this. Maybe I just say, I can do it as a constant. So I can just say const, my number equals 5. All right. And let me make it a little bit bigger as I kind of go over here so you can see it better. So this will be like an interface right here. They're going to interface in this part of the code, and it introduces this section here as being this game start handler. So in this part of the code, they're instructed from the lesson to go maybe just define a number, or it actually expects it to be in there, and then they would change it. So over here, this is what I will put in here again that I didn't. So CS1 dot, and I can just go CS1.log, and then I can say the name of the character. So I can just say over here and say CS1, to show you a little bit of the interface. I can say my player dot name logged, and then over here I can say, and this is I can say my number, and right there. And once I've done that, this is part of the source code, so I do need to build it because this gets bundled in the application. So I would click save over here then, and let me make that smaller. Okay, so if I click save, the little save icon in the upper right, and now that save icon goes gray. Now it's been saved to the remote project. And then I click this little, it looks like a wrench. Click the little wrench, and it says building remote project. And it will actually bundle the entire, all the source code up into the bundle. There's a little bit of transpilation, just some minor things that are getting kind of changed. And then it bundles it up nice and small for the client application. And once it's done, you can see that goes away, and then down here it feeds out the remote server log. What I'll do right next or now is launch the game so you can see the change. And I guess I'll just go in with the admin. And now if I go in here, right? So now if I go over to that log screen, you can see it says admin log 5. Now this was just running the log command on the global CS1. But there is another, there's also you know, a VR log as well, which is going to make everybody get that information. This is only going to show up on this particular client's log screen. And you can put as many of these screens in there as you want. Down the road, everything's customizable. But that's the basics of, you are given this Google Slides presentation, and then it'll instruct you how to interact with the particular concepts. It'll introduce you to the concepts, and then you can check your understanding, or the students can check their understanding of the concepts by going over here to the check mark, and it's connected to a Google Forms quiz. And then the students can, I have it set so that they can take it as many times as they want, just till they get 100%, so that they can look over the basic expectation of things that they're to get out of this lesson, and then they can kind of move on, so they can self-assess. All right. So enough of this for now. Let's take a look at where do these lessons, these Google Slides lessons, and where do these Google Forms quizzes, how do they come about? Well, in my Google Drive, I just make a folder called lessons, and I have lessons over here, these lessons, and then I have some separate ones here for Python. I can get into that a little bit. And then I also have another folder here for quizzes, right? I guess I could have the quizzes just in the same ones with each lesson, but that's probably actually better. But at this point, each of these quizzes, for example, are just a Google Forms quiz. So you can go in there and make the Google Forms quiz. Like, for example, which one? Let me just open up here. I'm starting to number these at this point. I didn't go through all of them. Maybe, what if I go over to this one, for example? So here's one of the quizzes. All right. So here's one of the Google Forms quizzes. Once you're done creating the quiz, first of all, over here in Google Forms, I just set it to make it a quiz, and I give them immediate feedback after each submission. I show them all the correct answers and the missed questions and the point values. Not that I'm getting all persnickety about points at this point. And then after that, I just click send, and then I go to the embed HTML, and we're going to get this, basically this source URL that's in here. So if I go over and copy that, for example, I copy that, and I'm just going to paste that over here, make it a little bit bigger, right? So right in here, this is what I want, this URL that's in here. So this URL that's in here is for the quiz, and let's just say I was going to add another lesson and quiz. How would I do that in the IDE? Well, in the IDE, I would have to go, like I could remix the IDE as well. I know I haven't done that yet, but let's actually do that. Let me make a remix of the IDE and just jump out of here. It's just as easy. And I think I just, so if I did bit.ly / CS1 IDE remix, I think I made that. You could just go to the actual project and click remix on it, but I think I made it. Yep, I did. So I did make a bit.ly for that. So it's CS1 IDE remix. So it made me a new copy of the IDE. Now myself, as like a teacher, somebody just wants to make their own lessons, can jump into the public folder in the components, into the lessons, and into the templates. And over here, this is where the lessons are. And it's basically just following this format. Like here's lesson, this says lesson 10. Let's just say for right now, I just copied that. I know I got rid of that other point. Say I copied that and pasted that, and I added another lesson here. I just called it lesson 11, and I can even just say test, testing, right? So I'm just doing that right now just so that you can see that that's available. And over here, this is what shows up. This is the source code that it's associated with it. So the save target is basically the source code from the, if you go over to the Game Engine project. So in the Game Engine, not here, I should actually go back to the Game Engine. Yep. In the Game Engine, so in the Game Engine, in the source code, in the core components, there's the My Components. That's the most popular source code file that's getting changed, as you can see right there. That's actually, see how it got changed, even though we changed it from the editor. There's what we made, the changes we made. Now let's just say that you wanted to change this source code. You would just copy that path to that source code file, and you would put that over in here. Right now it's pointing to the index.html file that's in the public folder, and you can change that. The quiz URL is what we just kind of grabbed from the Google Forms quiz, and we could put that in right there. And you can, similarly, you can get the URL for a published presentation. So let's actually go over to, let me jump out of, close this quiz. Now let's look at a presentation. So if I go over here to the lessons, Google presentations. So if I just opened up this one, for example, how do you get this link that you put in? So in the Google presentation, if you go File and go down to Publish to the Web, File and then Publish to the Web, I usually change it to like every minute, and then go to Embed, and then click Publish. I'm already publishing it. Click Publish. and then you just copy that code. Again, we don't need all that code. We just want part of it. So I'm going to do the same kind of thing I did before. This is just a little text area. I'm just popping it in there. So I just want to get basically this URL. I would copy that, for example, and I would go over here into my remix of the CS1 IDE. And you can just name this whatever for your class if you were a teacher. Just paste that in there. And that's the lesson URL. And that can just be your particular lesson that you made. And you can just say, you can even call it the name of your course. You can say my course, whatever, IDE. Just brand it however you want. So my course IDE, and then that being done, then go ahead at that point and let's go ahead and open up the IDE, and I'll just log in with that same live stream demo. Okay, so I'm going to go over here and show the IDE, my course IDE. Notice that this is the remixed IDE, and I'm going to go ahead and put what was it? Live stream demo. So live stream demo, and enter. And now I'm logged in right there, and boom. Okay. Now if I go to other lessons, see, there's that testing lesson right there. Boom. There's that adjustment. Of course, it's still, no, it's that particular lesson that I picked from, but you can see how it just added that in there. Just by adding in the templates, we just added down here. Testing was the name of the lesson, and here's the URL, which is to the Google presentation, and then here's the URL to the Google Forms quiz. And then here is the file path to the source code that's going to get adjusted. All right. Now, if the source code needs to be rebuilt, then you should put the instructions in there for them to, for example, to run a build on to run the remote build by clicking the little wrench. If it's in the public folder, like some of these, like if you were using the Python, so let me just say that if you're currently, what I've played around with so far with the Python API is, if you see here, the index HTML, for example, is in the public folder. So that's not going to get built. So any changes that you have people make in here to the index HTML, they don't have to rebuild it. They can just save it and then run it. But if it's to anything that's in the source directory, so anything in the public directory, they don't have to have it rebuilt. Oh, this is the IDE, I'm sorry. Anything in the public directory, they don't have to have rebuilt, but anything in the source directory, they do. So anything over here in this SRC directory that you would want to have modified as part of your lesson, then you would definitely have it rebuilt. And what that means is just basically have the students, after they click save, they have to click the little build icon, which is the little wrench. And then once it's done building, then they can go ahead and launch it. Okay, let me kind of peek in and let's see. Let me see if I have any questions over here. I'm going into Oblivion. Let me just jump over here and see the let me just jump in and see if we have any questions in over here, right? So, matter of fact, before just doing that, I'll just jump out of the screen share temporarily. And hello. So I'll go check in, see if there's any questions that we may have in the chat. If not, continue there. Okay. Okay. So a little weird seeing myself on delay there, but so if you do have any questions, you are definitely good to post some questions there in the chat, or just reach out to me outside of the chat, and I'll definitely respond to what you have to say. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close that out. I'm going to jump in right now to the Python side of things. So let me just give you some perspective here. This, again, I can't emphasize enough that I'm trying to be responsive to what some students had asked for, and then since sharing it with teachers, being responsive to what they said. Well, if you can make it easy for me to do this, that's usually kind of like the lead in for whatever a teacher would say. If you can make it really easy to do this particular thing, like for me to just make a little physics demo, or for me to get my students to make some art and put it in the game. So I get a lot of feedback like that. Or if you could incorporate an interface with this other language. Now that's really interesting to me. I like that. For example, just this morning I was working on a Rust interface. So if you look over here, this is just a little hello world Rust server, but we can make a little microservice endpoint in Rust, which is a strongly typed language, and it is memory safe, wonderful, very fast, high performant language, and memory safe language. So I'm going to definitely, for my own interest, make some Rust lessons down the road, not immediately. But I've already made a couple lessons for Python. So let's just go ahead and just jump. Let me just close some things over here. Let me do a screen share again. And I'll do the entire screen. And here we go again. All right. So here's what I was just talking about that you didn't see because I didn't have screen share going. But I was just playing around with a little Rust server this morning, and Rust is another computer language, and it is a great language. It's strongly typed, it's memory safe, it's very, very fast, and so we can integrate this system to or with other languages. So that being said, let me go ahead and this is a live stream demo. Let me go and close this up right here. Close that out. Let's just go to glitch. And I made a CS1 Python. Let me just go. I guess I could look in mine. But if you were at glitch, you could just type in CS1 -py. Yeah. So CS1 -py. This is example of interfacing with Python 3. Even the other CS1 could be set up to work with Python 3, but I've already set this one up. It's only a couple steps that you have to make to take. So you can actually, I'm going to go to edit project. But right here, once this boots up here, so where's the Python getting interfaced from? What am I talking about? So if I go in the public file here, public folder, in this public folder, I can see that I have this information here. I have in the source folder, I have a Py, and it says Python script right there. And here it has my little component for using the Python library to kind of interface with the Python. So over here, I'm going to go ahead and just, first of all, let me run this with another version of the IDE, which I think I put CS1 Py-IDE. I believe that's what it is. Maybe, or not. Okay, so maybe, is it Py-IDE? Let me actually go back and check down here. In my collections, CS1 Python, CS1 Py. Let me go open this up. And CS1 IDE Py. Okay, so if I go over here, this is the, I guess I can open the actual IDE. So here's an example using AFPY as the project. Okay, so I'll just use that. And here we are. So I made a couple example lessons for Python just to show you. If you're interested, I'll definitely help you set things up here for Python. So Python lesson 2. Here's a quiz. Here's a lesson. And we can see here's the code that gets dealt with. And this code is all built out. You know, this is nothing but Python right here. If you look at the syntax right there, that's all Python. All right, we have some function definitions right here. We have some imports using the Python syntax. And what does this basically do? So if I go to launch the game, see what's being done here with the Python. Now go in there. We can see over here. Let me just turn it up a little bit.
CS1 Community Park. Please join us at 9 p.m. for some tasty roasted marshmallow s'mores.
So right there, this box is actually added to the scene and animated using Python. And that was, this information up here was logged to that screen using Python. So you can simply use this for teaching a course in Python and just have your lessons where they have the output in an interesting 3D environment and just say, okay, that's it. You know, I don't need to have them further develop games, and I can just use this as a context for teaching something like Python or teaching something like Rust, right? So although with Rust, there's no client-side interpreter. It would have to be like a web service, kind of like this is a server. So it would have to be a server-side kind of interaction. But nonetheless, you can have them program in Rust. I can have them program in Java. I can have them, program in different languages. Python they can program on the server or on the client. With Rust and with Java, they would be programming on a server and making a microservice. And then JavaScript, of course, they can program on the server as well as on the client as well. So that's pretty much all I have so far. I do have really some exciting things that I've found are exciting in terms of like the game aspects for the students who want to get more serious about actually making a game they can deploy, and they can get some type of community around their own game. So if I jump into that for a second, what if I did, let me see, is that CS1 next? Which one? Or one of the older ones? CS1 HQ. Let me try the HQ. So the old setup right here. So if I go over here and do CS1 HQ, CS1 HQ, let me show that. This is a previous rendition. It was a little too busy for students to start off with, but it does showcase more components that I've already built into the system. I totally took out just having this heads-up display overlaid, and I just put it into the world. I'll show you that in a little bit, maybe here. But if I go over here, log in. So this has a lot of components.
Agency headquarters. All visitors are required to sign in.
You can sign in by clicking right here. You can see that there's a lot more components involved in this. There's that log screen. There's other shaders. If the kids want to get into shader programming, they can get into that as well. They can upgrade their avatars. So now I have a faster, and there's NPCs that you can add, so that robot is actually following a predefined path. It's NPC. You can also integrate IoT devices, like right here. Here's an IoT model, and it's lit up in the real world. If I were to, excuse me, whoops. If I get that, if I click on the right spot, you can actually turn the IoT device on and off. You can shoot things or throw them up in the air. Right there, I'm launching these disco balls up into the air. And it works on multiplayer, right? So when they launch it, all the players are seeing that at the same time. If you want to study how that synchronization happens across the network, then we can have lessons on that. Just shooting all these off into wherever. This is interesting. This is actually just the next 5 days' weather. So the green you can see right there is the cooler evenings, and then the yellow to orangish is when it gets warmer. So it's just a way to visualize the weather for the next 5 days. So if you wanted to get into data science, you can also bring in some data science and visualization into the process. Okay, so that's just another little demo world. So you can make them. They can make whatever type of worlds they want. And there's other kind of, in the system, there's already a bunch of other components they can already get involved with using. So I don't want to go much longer other than to say, please reach out. This is about being responsive initially to just 2 students. And then it started snowballing once they started to share with some other students and teachers. So I am happy to pour into this, and I love to pour into communities. If you go to the presentation in the description, you can find the link to the Discord channel, and you can join our Discord, and then you can chime in there as you're comfortable. Once you feel more comfortable, just reach out and say, hey, I would like to see this as part of the engine. I would like to see this kind of lesson. You might say, hey, I heard you talking about the Rust language. Yeah, why don't you make a few Rust lessons and show me how to set up my custom lessons. I need a little bit more detailed help in setting those up. And I will be happy to facilitate that kind of training. That being said, I want you to have a wonderful, wonderful day. It's so nice to be part of educational communities, and I wish you the wonderful, wonderful day that you deserve.